We are live here with a very special program for Friday. It is a great honor to have some of the most compelling winemakers in Washington State join us today, starting with Matt Reinvan, talking about his 2017 releases. We also have another special guest, Jill Nicole, who will be joining us. And we'll finish up with Alex Stewart, winemaker of Quilceda Creek. And we're going to go live with Matt here in a second from Walla Walla. It's another gloomy day here in Seattle. Hey, buddy.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Man, doing great.
Yeah, excellent.
We got some beautiful wines today. I mean, what's better than that, right?
Good Friday for sure.
Yeah, really good Friday. What have you been up to today?
We're planting a new vineyard down in Milton Freewater, so working on that.
Wow.
Yeah, more to come on that. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So is that a new location or?
Yeah, it's a new site we're working on.
Wow.
It'll be really fun.
That's really big news, man. I had no idea. That's cool.
Yeah. So I've been pretty busy and gonna be really busy here going forward.
Yeah, that's a lot of work planning a vineyard, but you know the area very well, so I'm sure that helps quite a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's difficult to get in there, but once those vine gets in there, man, it's some special wines coming out.
Yeah, you've definitely been there, done that with planting a vineyard, right?
Yeah. It's not good old hat, but I've been around the block a little bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I went for a run earlier. It's like a semi-rainy day here in Seattle, but it was really pretty down by the waterfront. Not too many people, which was nice. So, kind of try to stay active when I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's decent over here. It's kind of overcast now, but the weather's turning, so we're happy.
Yeah. Well, catch us up with kind of what you've been up to during this quarantine period. Have you been trying any special wines? What kind of work have you been doing in the winery as well?
Yeah, a lot of it is keep continuing to check the progress of the 19s. We just finished bottling this week of our 2018, the Stone Essence and In the Rocks. And, a lot of it's logistical problems with this quarantine, trying to get the right glass and corks. And so we had to, spread them out over a couple bottlings.
Wow. Yeah. A lot of extra work and extra time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Lots of just planning, but you got to do what you got to do.
Well, speaking of 2019, for some people, 2019 was a bit challenging with the freeze events that happened in October. Catch us up a little bit with how you like your 2019 white and red wines.
Well, right now, we're incredibly happy about how they've turned out. But going through the season, we were kind of it was really a remarkable season. But then at the end, it got a little sketchy with kind of some of our later hanging varietals. But we ended up coming in when we wanted. There was in a little bit of 19, there was a little bit of rot. So you had to kind of mitigate that. But overall, honestly, it's one of the best vintages. For my personal taste, it's one of the best vintages we've done. So we're really, yeah. That's
awesome. Were there any varietals in particular that you feel like really stood out for you?
The Foothills definitely stood out. For the Syrah, I was playing a little bit with some of the In the Rocks stuff, so we got some new characteristics to it that kind of incorporated a little more stem for the 19. It was really interesting. And then the Bordeaux varietals, the Cab Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, kind of newer stuff we're doing, was some of the best I've ever worked with. So really, yeah.
Wow, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Well, for some of our listeners that have never tried your wines, Matt has a really illustrious career, been featured multiple times in Wine Spectator, other big articles written on him. And can you tell us a little bit about your background in winemaking, some of your inspirations, and then also, what you've learned from Christophe Rome?
Sure. Yeah. I came to Walla Walla. I was on a different trajectory career-wise. So I came over here just looking for a job, honestly, after my schooling. Before it was in the golf business. And, we knew Charles Smith for a long time. So we had some connections over here, talking with him. And, you come over here for a certain period of time and you catch the wine bug. And luckily, I ended up having a good palate, I found out. So I was able to taste stuff, remember things, remember wines that other people were opening that I couldn't afford. And, it was just, it was really special. And then it escalated, not escalated, it just went up dramatically when we got connected with Christophe Barron. So, he kind of taught me the vineyards and later on a little bit of the winemaking. I did a stint in France in Bordeaux and worked for Charles for a little bit and Marty Club, the Cole. And so, yeah, it's, you learn from all these guys and then you find your own, your own style, what you like, what you don't like, and you go from there. So, but you got to start with great vineyards.
Absolutely, and you definitely have that. And some people don't know that you had a period where you were working at one of the top wineries in Bordeaux, Chateau Smith Lafitte, and I mean, I imagine that was an eye-catching experience working there. What kind of stuff did you learn about winemaking, and then how did that impact your approach to making white and red wine?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I realized is the French don't really like Americans. That was the first thing. They would give me the worst jobs. But, honestly, that experience changed my entire life because I went and saw what it was to truly live and breathe the vines and only think about that and your family. And, that's kind of what it was about. And so being over there for, even though it was a short period of time, I learned about just living in the vines. And the Cathillard family took me in, and I was under Fabien Taijen, who's the director of technique. And, he was kind of an open book and said, listen, you have to find your own way, but this is how we do it. And he wasn't like, I'm not telling you anything. And he was great that way. And, their white wine program has just been remarkable. It's still some of my favorite wine drink. And their reds were just like, I was there right before, like their 2005 really took off, and they just better and better and better. So I just sponge, man. I soaked it all up and just, kind of kept my mouth shut. And so, yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the Bordeaux Blanc from Chateau Hat Lafitte. That's one of my, for the price too. I mean, that's one of my favorite wines of the world, right?
So good. Every time I go back to it, I just think, God, I should have paid more attention to something. I'm missing something here.
Well, now we would be remiss. We don't have your white wines today to sample, but we would be remiss without talking about your whites. In the last several years, in particular, I've been just blown away with the quality of white wine that you've been producing. Surely some of the best white wines of North America for my palate.
Wow, thank you.
Talk a little bit about, how difficult it is making white wine with the sites that you have. What are some of the challenges that you have making white wine in the rocks that has, this really great acidity and captivating mouthfeel and texture and great range? What are some of the challenges that you have using that terroir?
Sure. If we start at the In the Rocks, which we do 3 whites from, or sometimes 4, the growing season is looking perfect, and all of a sudden the vines kind of start to really slow down, and we're like, oh, okay, what's happening here? Let's give them a little boost because we're worried we're not going to get to the ripeness we want, the sugar levels. And so sometimes I found in difficult years that the acid takes over a little bit too much, because my personal palate goes for a richer style of white wine. But I like having good acid in there. And I think with the Grenache Blanc, it's a perfect balance of acidity and richness. The Viognier can sometimes get away from us a little bit because it comes in kind of at the time when the reds start coming in. So you got to be very diligent about, tasting every day, making sure that nothing's really changing. And then the Marsanne, I've had years where you know, it's been just absolutely perfect. And other years where it's just, I want to rip my hair out, you know, because it's just really frustrating. But we don't we make it more of a, you know, as a passion project. You know, it's not very many cases. It's more of an offset of our co-fermentation stuff. But I love making whites. So.
Yeah, I mean, you can really tell, you know, you have this marvelous attention to detail. You know, when you try these wines, they really stand out in terms of mouthfeel, texture, and range. And they have this marvelous stony terroir. When you combine all those elements, you know, it's and then the mouthwatering acidity that you're able to get. These are really special, unique whites. I would say probably different than any other whites made in, you know, really in anywhere.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I mean, we try really hard. It's you know, it's not what keeps the lights on around here, so it's got to be have to really want to do it, and you got to know what you're looking for, I think. And as the vineyard, you know, gets older, we're able to, you know, look deeper into like selection and what really should make the cut and what shouldn't make the cut. Yeah, I mean, it's all a personal style, and you know, we. I really think that when it's right, there's not very many you know, Rhone style wines that can do it like that. So
yeah. Well, the a wine I tried last year was your 2017 In the Rocks Syrah, highest scoring white wine that I tried in North America, actually, and that wine had just a sterling combination of minerality, freshness, texture. It was actually a pretty big wine. It had great range. For people at home that have never tried this wine, can you talk a little bit about this really special release that you had last year, the 17
Sure.
Rijn van Viognier?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 17 was one of the best years we had for white wines across the board. You know, sometimes we get parts of what we like out of the wine, you know, maybe a great viscosity, a richness to it, and then lacking in acid. But in 17, they all came together. Yeah. So I love it because it's very approachable for folks who don't know a lot about white wines, the Viognier. But, you know, you get that rich characteristic to it, but you have acid that's very food friendly. And then our other whites, you know, the Grenache Blanc is just like crisp, great drinking, you know. So, but it was a special year for whites, and you know, that's what happens. And when you have your own vineyards, you get what the terroir gives you.
Yeah, and I bought some of your Viognier, and I took one bottle to Maui with my wife before this COVID thing hit. Yeah. And you know, I was sitting on the porch and kind of taking this in and thinking about the wine. And I think that's true for a lot of your wines, is that these are wines that are very pensive, right? They have, like, they're delicious to drink, but there's a lot of different layers that come with the wine. And that's what I think, that's part of what makes your wine so special. How are you kind of like able to capture that, you know, with your wine program?
Well, you know, you can never rest on any laurels, you know. I mean, you have to like always experiment and always taste and, you know, get out there and see what's around the world and see what, you know, maybe you can incorporate to your own vineyard and practices. You know, even with original style of white wines, I did more, you know, neutral stainless. Lately I've been going with more oak as the year dictates, you know. Sometimes I back it off, but I think it's just really important to, you know, the way that we do it, where it's native yeast, where we never inoculate anything. It's just what we get. Yeah. You know, the degree of which we do lee stirring for the kind of richness, the creaminess of it, and the acidity, you know, balancing out all of that. You know, some years it just becomes really special. And I like that you said layers, because that's what we try to do. We don't want it to be one dimensional. We really want it to kind of, you know, evolve and go. So
yeah, these are wines that, you know, they're not like some fun white wine, right? They're not made that way. They're made to be kind of taken in and savor the complexity. It's not like a fun wine that you have, you know, on a summer day. These are wines that I think, you know, deserve to sit with a little bit, and I appreciate that, because I review a lot of wine. So
sure, yeah. Well, that's, I think a great wine is like a red wine in terms of how you enjoy it. So
Yeah.
sometimes white wines can be one dimensional and you just want a refreshing drink, but
Yeah.
ours can be, enjoyed by themselves or with food and are really versatile.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
I had a chance to try a very special wine that you made last year, which is a Magnum wine. I tried your Marsan in the barrel, and I haven't tried it yet. Fully like reviewed the wine, but you were really excited about this wine when we tasted together, and man, that Marsan is incredible. It's a very beautifully textured wine that's got great. I feel like I can still taste the wine.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your Marsan that's only a Magnum only wine?
Yeah, so that was the first time that we had ever been able to do 100% Marsanne. Since the beginning, we had wanted to try to do it, because we have in our Queens Road Marsanne Viognier blend.
Yeah.
But there was this particular punch-in that I kept going back to, and I had to like show other people to see if I was crazy or not, because I thought this was one of the best white wines that we've done here.
Yeah.
And we ended up deciding let's just do it. This may never happen again,
Yeah.
so. It's still one of my favorite wines, and we'll make sure you get some to try, because everyone is just it's just not going to happen again, and that's what I love about it. Hopefully, we never know.
I imagine that being in Magnum, it's a wine that will have a long like aging potential as well.
Yeah, no, I think this wine is going to be long lived. I think of kind of the great Northern Rhone, the Hermitage, kind of.
Yeah.
Just that's what I'm hoping for. That's what it feels like to me. It just felt that special. So I hope that's the case.
Talking about Chauve Blanc, Chauve Hermitage Blanc, that's really, I think, one of the iconic white wines in the world, right?
Yeah. You try it and your mind, it's so cerebral. It just is unreal. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the prices have skyrocketed on the wine, so it's kind of not approachable now. But I've
Yeah.
had it a few times, and that's a wine too that's truly pensive. You need to sit with it.
Yeah, that's definitely not my dinner wine. No, it's a very, committed to memory, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about 2017. We have two wines today from the 2017 vintage to taste. Can you catch us up a little bit with what you liked about the vintage, and also kind of how the vintage turned out from these two different sites? We have one that's from your In the Rocks vineyard, and then the other one is from your vineyard right next to the winery, the In the Hills vineyard.
Yeah, yeah. The Foothills Vineyard is right by the winery at 1,600 feet elevation, and then you have the In the Rocks Vineyard, which is closer to the 800 range, and. 17 was an interesting year because it kind of, it started off kind of cool a little at first, and then, it started to warm up, and it was looking like it was going to be a hot year again, and then, the fires from British Columbia and over by the gorge, all that came in, and some of the really hottest times that we had were blocked because the smoke was so high, it was blocking out kind of the sun. And, we're just like, oh my goodness, thank you, because we didn't know if we were going to have smoke taint. We didn't know what was happening, but it ended up protecting us a little bit in the valley here. So we feel fortunate. But the wines, have amazing, both sites have more great natural acidity. Foothill has more natural acidity, and but the In the Rocks has a perfect balance, I think, this year. It's got power, but it still has its finesse, its elegance. The 17th In the Hills is very very much a Syrah geeks wine because it's got really funky characteristics to it, the gamey stuff. So it was an interesting year, but I think we really it's so fun because it's a great image of the valley, because we plant and do everything similarly from high up and lower down. So,
well, speaking of your Foothills vineyard, this is a great story about how you decided to plant your vineyard, and I know that there was a certain dissenter who was thinking maybe that's not a good idea, right?
yeah. So we had purchased this spot for a residence actually, and my parents were kind of thinking about getting into the business maybe, but not really the plan. It was Christoph had come up and was consulting for us, and we were thinking about doing something up here. And he looked at we dug some kind of holes to see what the terroir was, and it was mostly just silty loam with spots of rocks and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of like, I just don't think this is going to work up here, And he was trying to give us like books on terroir, and all these things. And so we were kind of a little discouraged, but Christoph's like, you know what, Matt, Syrah, you should plant it. We may have to rip it all out, but we should try it, And so we ended up trying it, and from the very beginning, it was remarkable in terms of the characteristic of the individual characters of it. It had so much pepper, so much game. After we finally bottled it, Christoph was like, I bought all the land around you, because he loves that old world style. So, but yeah, it was really a great find and amazing terroir, that we were lucky enough to get. So.
Yeah, well, let's taste this together. The 2017 In the Hills. So, talk a little bit about the blending of this wine and how that kind of works with connecting with the Syrah.
Sure. But between each vineyard, we're very diversely with clonal selection. We have a lot of different clones to give. I always think of winemaking as like being a chef. So you have all these different ingredients, and there's two blocks that are just different orientations. And then we keep them all in small ferment, the little 1.5 ton fermenters, and kind of see which direction they're going. As we've gone along now, we kind of know the characteristics of the In the Hills, what we were looking for. And then we also have the Foothills Reserve. And so we kind of just play with that for, anywhere from 10 to 16 months. And then we usually bottle it a little bit early and then let it bottle age. But the upbringing is a lot of neutral oak. It's native yeast, unfined, unfiltered. Depending on the year, the stems range from anywhere from 20 to maybe 40, 50 at the max. And it's pretty similar to how we bring up the In the Rocks. So it's a great comparison. Yeah.
And so how does like co-ferment work in terms of vintage, and does that vary much, or is that pretty consistent?
Yeah, because we have all these different lots, we take like, maybe 2, 3, sometimes 4 lots, and put just a small percentage of Viognier in and co-ferment them with the red grapes.
Yeah.
And then as we go along, we see, okay, this one works with this one. And then we keep everything separate till the end. And then we kind of dive in and see what makes what we call the cut line, for the premium. And then if we like the style, then we bring them together, and then we kind of see what the percentage is of Viognier in there. And it usually ranges between 5 and as high as 10%.
Wow.
But for the most part, we kind of fall into that 6, 5 range usually.
Yeah.
But we don't make a recipe wine, so it's it changes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm smelling the wine, and the nose is just intoxicating with the floral tones coming through, the red rose petal from the VO, and the really nice, like almost honeysuckle tones. It's very, very nice florals right now, I think.
Yeah, definitely the florals are coming through. I always think you get that salt briny characteristic,
Yeah. Almost like charcuterie.
Yeah, like a charcuterie. You get some, green olive tapenade in there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's very much, old world style, but from our terroir, which is just so much fun.
Yeah, this is very Northern Rhone, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It really is.
And the alcohol levels are, for folks who take a look at that, this one's about 13.7, I think. So, it's a nice range, very clean.
The texture is insanely good. It's got great feeling, a mouthfeel and texture, racy acidity, and that nice little dusting of salt character, like the salinity kind of
Yeah.
runs all the way through.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is so good.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We love this wine too.
Yeah, and it's tell us a little bit about aging potential from your Foothills vineyard. What have you noticed since you started producing that wine?
Yeah, so we first produced in 2010, and it is very much alive still. You know, even off of third leaf fruit. You know, the natural acid in here gives it a great backbone and structure to it for longevity. I think that the aging potential is going to be very, very significant. What's fun about it, and because I'm first generation winemaker, is I'm learning as we go along of how our wines truly do age. So we'll see, how long it goes, but I think it's got a long life.
Mm. One thing I noticed about this wine, it's got a very pretty quality to it. It's almost like Pinot-esque in a way. Like it's got this pretty red fruit at the core.
Yeah.
And then just tons of different layers after that. The umami, a little bit of like white pepper, maybe bacon fat or charcuterie, like we were saying.
Yeah.
I love that at its core, there's a very pretty layer of red fruit. Do you find that you get that kind of character typically from this vineyard, the kind of bright red fruit character?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you do. For the fruit aspect of it, you get more of those bright characteristics, and then you get the secondary notes, more of the sausage, the bloody kind of, those characteristics, the pepper, gamey, all that. But yeah, for the fruit, it's always that bright red acidity that does kind of sometimes in some years feel like a Pinot.
Well, let's taste the second wine and see if we get that, right? So the second wine is the 17 In the Rocks.
So this one's going to be a touch higher in alcohol. I think it's 14.
Okay. Yeah, 14.
Incorporating, I think it's it had 6% Viognier co-fermented in there. Yeah.
Good amount. Yeah. Velvety wine right now.
It's opened up beautifully over the last couple of years. Just it felt a little tight at first when we we're kind of tasting through it, but like now, a year and a half later, whatever. I mean, it is like really starting to show itself, and it's just going to keep going.
What do you notice? Tasting these wines together. What do you notice? Like the main differences are for you?
I would say the biggest thing is the savoriness of the In the Rocks comes through. It's got more a different, kind of glycerol texture to it. It has great balance in there as well with the acid. But I think from In the Rocks versus from In the Hills, you get more smoked meats, like going to a Texas barbecue or something. You pick up that. You pick up like darker fruits in this from this vineyard.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, that's what's fun about it is when we're having a comparison of this small little valley that we could create these different types of Syrahs from very similar practices in both the vineyard and the cellar.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you with the In the Hills has more of a core of red fruit, but In the Rocks has definitely more of a core of like almost a sour, like black fruit, like wild blackberry or something like that. Huckleberry maybe. What a world-class comparison this is. I'm surprised that the wines are showing so differently too.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I'm so glad we were able to do this because it's such a fun comparison that, we get to do a lot at the winery because we're fortunate that way, going to the cellar. But for others to do this, it really shows kind of how the range of our wines, what they can be. And in a year like 17, it was a really great match.
Oh, it is. I mean, these both wines are showing beautifully. It's a great opportunity for me to kind of sit with you and chat about the wines without like typing away on my computer, right? It's
I actually get to enjoy a little bit. Yeah.
No, I think there's a light stony character to the In the Hills that we've talked about together. Can you it's obviously not as overtly stony as the In the Rocks is, but can you tell the people a little bit about how you've noticed that the light, like kind of flinty or stony character that you get from your estate vineyard?
Yeah, it's one of those baffling things because I've looked into, obviously our soil types, and it's completely deep, silty loam. You wouldn't expect to get minerality, but it does feel like it's sucking up some sort of minerality. Every year you have a little bit of that almost flinty characteristic to it. And, it's super exciting. I'm not a scientist, but those kind of things are kind of beautiful that you can't really explain, it's just terroir aspects. So, yeah. I couldn't give you like a quantitative answer of how it works, but we love that it brings that out because it's a different kind of minerality from the rocks where you feel that like almost sucking on a wet rock, at some point, where the other one has a little bit more of that gunpowder flinty character. So
they both have a stony character. Just they're kind of stony in different ways. It's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about the 2017 vintage, and you have a new set of releases from 2018. Can you catch us up a little bit with what you liked about the 2018 vintage, another warm vintage in Washington?
Yeah, I mean, I think 18 was warm vintage, but really great growing conditions. We didn't have to really. It's hard to kind of see right now. It's kind of like 12 and 16 mix type of characteristic. We ended up making a little bit more in the rocks, so our customers are happy, and we have a little bit less of stone essence and contender. I'm trying to kind of fine tune each block and get a little bit more out of it. And in 18, you have a great richness to it. You have you still have awesome acidity. It was a really fun year to make wine. So I'm looking forward to seeing their development. Just bottling them right now, they need some time, of course, but they have the stuffing and the richness, at least from In the Rocks stuff. We bottled the Foothills, but we weren't able to make a In the Hills in 2018. So that was a bummer. We had issues up there that couldn't be, the wine just never turned, and we didn't have enough. So unfortunately that's the case, but life goes on.
Yeah, that's what sometimes in the cellar, you just hope that a wine will kind of turn around, and sounds like, if it's not up to your high quality, it's just not worth it, right?
It's just not worth it, yeah. And so we taste constantly, and if it's not what we want, we just say adios.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I mean, these wines are just absolutely brilliant right now. They've got a lot of aging potential. I know that I'm very much looking forward to trying your 18s and getting over to Walla Walla and visiting with you and talking about those wines. It sounds like there's a lot to look forward to in 18.
There is. There's a lot to look forward to. We miss you, man. We look forward for this thing to be over and getting you over and tasting the wines. Lots of fun stuff to try. Yeah,
I can't wait, man. Well, thanks again for meeting up with me and tasting with me. Cheers to these absolutely stunning, different pieces of terroir. You're doing some amazing things, man, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Well, cheers, brother. Thank you so much. We're so happy for what you're doing, and all of us in the industry, thank you, man.
Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Okay. All right. Take care.
See you, buddy.